The storm clouds over the city had barely cleared when the morning shift began at the Grand Marlowe estate, an estate so large and so silent that even the birds seemed to whisper when they flew over it. Most people only ever saw the gates from the outside, wondering what life looked like behind those tall iron bars. But for Lena, the cleaning lady who worked the early hours, those walls were the only place she ever felt truly safe. She moved quietly, pushing her cart down the polished marble hallway, her footsteps soft, her tired eyes warm and gentle. And at her side, clinging to her leg like a little shadow, was her baby boy, Noah. Noah was only about 2, but there was something different about him. He didn't laugh the way most toddlers did. He didn't reach out for strangers or smile at friendly faces. In fact, he didn't let anyone touch him. Not even the gardeners who adored children, not the cooks who tried offering him biscuits, not the other maids who sometimes knelt down just to say hello. Whenever someone came close, Noah would bury his face into Lena's clothes, gripping her tightly, trembling until the person walked away. Some whispered that the baby had been through something. Others insisted he was just shy, but nobody knew the truth. Lena never said much about Noah's father or about her life before she started working for the Marlowe family. She was quiet, soft-spoken, and always kept her head down. The only thing anyone knew for sure was that she loved her child with every piece of her heart, and that she would give up everything to protect him. No one questioned it, and nobody pried, at least not until the day the millionaire showed up unannounced. Ethan Marlowe, the owner of the entire estate and one of the youngest millionaires in the country, preferred to stay far away from his own mansion. He was known for his serious nature and business-first mindset, and he visited the estate only when necessary. Most of the household staff had never even met him in person. They only saw his photos in magazines or heard stories about his strict work ethic. So, when his black car rolled into the driveway one early morning, every worker froze. Lena didn't expect to see him that day, and she certainly didn't expect what happened next. She was standing in the hallway, wiping dust from one of the tables, with Noah clinging to her leg as always. The boy peeked around her skirt from time to time, only to hide again whenever footsteps echoed from down the hall. His big brown eyes were always watching, always studying, as if he understood more than any child should. Then Ethan Marlowe stepped inside. He walked briskly, his suit still crisp from a business meeting, his expression stiff as he spoke to one of his assistants. The staff whispered his name like he was some kind of legend. He wasn't known for being warm or approachable. People often said he lived in his head, not in his heart. So when he moved past the cleaning area, Lena gently pulled Noah behind her, expecting him to cling tighter than ever. But that didn't happen. Instead, Noah lifted his head. The little boy stared at Ethan with wide, unblinking eyes. Lena felt Noah's small fingers loosen from her clothes, a moment she had never felt before. She looked down, confused, then looked up again just in time to see something impossible. Noah stepped away from her, one small foot, then another, slowly, carefully, as if drawn by something invisible. Ethan paused, noticing the child in the center of the hallway. His cold, distant expression softened, just barely, as he stared back. And then, without hesitation, Noah walked straight to him. The staff gasped. Lena froze, her heart pounding. Noah never went near anyone. He never let anyone hold him, never let anyone close. But now, this tiny boy with trembling legs walked right up to the man everyone feared. And before anyone could understand what was happening, Noah reached out his arms. He wanted Ethan to pick him up. Lena's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to call out, to pull her baby back, but the words wouldn't come. Something about the scene didn't feel wrong. It felt familiar, as if Noah knew this man from somewhere, as if this wasn't the first time. Ethan hesitated for a second, stunned just like everyone else. But then he gently bent down and lifted the toddler. Noah wrapped his arms around Ethan's neck, holding it with complete trust, something he had never shown anyone, not even to the kindest members of the staff. Ethan stood there, confused but not pushing the child away. It was the first time the staff had seen his expression crack. He didn't look like the strict millionaire anymore. He looked like a man who had just been handed a piece of a puzzle he didn't know existed. Lena's eyes filled with tears, half from shock, half from fear, because she knew something the others didn't. Noah didn't trust easily. He didn't open up without a reason. And if he had gone to Ethan like that, then maybe the past Lena had spent years running from was finally catching up. Ethan held the child carefully, his voice low as he whispered, "Hey, little guy, what's your name?" Before Lena could stop him, Noah answered in the softest, smallest voice anyone had ever heard him speak. "Fan." Lena froze. Noah could barely say his own name, but he said Ethan's perfectly. Ethan looked up at Lena, shocked. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something heavy, something unspoken, something dangerous passed between them. A connection, a history, a secret, one that neither of them was ready to admit. The hallway grew silent. The staff exchanged looks. Lena's hand shook as she stepped forward, unsure whether to take her child back or run far away from the man now holding him. Ethan didn't move. Noah didn't let go. And Lena knew, deep in her bones, that nothing about this moment was normal. Something was about to change. Something was about to break open. And whatever it was, it had everything to do with why Noah wouldn't let anyone touch him, except the one man he should have feared the most. Lena's heart thudded so loudly, she was certain everyone in the hallway could hear it. Noah's tiny fingers were still curled around Ethan's suit collar, as if they belonged there. Lena wiped her hands on her apron, tried to steady herself before stepping closer. She forced a small smile, one that didn't reach her eyes, and whispered, "Noah, sweetheart, come back to Mama." But Noah didn't even look at her. He stayed nestled against Ethan's shoulder, breathing calmly, as if this man, this millionaire he had never met, was the safest place in the entire estate. Ethan shifted slightly, surprised by how tightly the little boy clung to him, and then he slowly extended Noah back toward Lena. For a moment, Noah's fingers tightened, refusing. Then Ethan whispered something so low no one else caught it. Whatever he said made Noah loosen his grip, but he didn't stop staring at Ethan, as if afraid he might disappear. Lena took her son back into her arms and immediately felt a familiar tension in his small body, his shoulders hunched, his breath sharp and fast, his fear creeping back in the second he wasn't near Ethan. It was unnatural. It was frightening. And it was a reminder that the peace she had built around this child was fragile, easily shattered. Ethan watched them both with a puzzled expression, trying to understand why a child who couldn't bear to be near anyone else had reached out to him like that. His voice was gentle, surprisingly so, when he finally asked, "Does he usually behave like that?" Lena's throat tightened. She couldn't speak. Not yet. The staff around them pretended to continue their work, but their eyes stayed glued to the millionaire and the cleaning lady, two people who seemed to share a connection no one expected. Ethan glanced once more at Noah, then turned away as his assistant called him back to business. But before he walked off completely, he paused. His voice was lower, almost thoughtful. "If he needs anything, let me know." It wasn't a command. It wasn't distant. It almost sounded like concern. Lena didn't answer. She couldn't. She just held Noah closer and whispered to him softly, trying to calm the tremble in his small frame. But her own hands were shaking too, because something inside her had cracked open the moment Noah said that name, Ifan, as if he'd been waiting his whole little life to speak it. The rest of the staff slowly drifted away, whispering to one another about what they had just witnessed. Some thought it was sweet. Others thought it was strange. But only Lena understood the weight of it. Only she knew the danger in it. For the rest of the morning, Lena worked quickly, trying to stay out of sight. She didn't want another encounter with Ethan, not when her son reacted the way he did. Every time she passed a window and saw the expensive car parked outside, her stomach twisted. Memories she had tried so hard to bury began creeping back, threatening to choke her. She tried distracting herself. She hummed a soft tune Noah liked. She wiped the same table twice, just to keep her hands busy. But nothing helped. Noah was quieter than usual, glancing around now and then, as if searching for Ethan. And every time he didn't see him, his little face collapsed into confusion. During a break, Lena stepped outside to the small service garden behind the mansion. It was quiet there, just the sound of rustling leaves and distant traffic. She sat on the bench, holding Noah on her lap. He looked up at her, his dark eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and something deeper she couldn't name. "Noah," she whispered, brushing her hand through his soft curls. "Why did you go to him? HM? You don't go to anyone." Noah rested his head against her chest. He didn't speak, but he didn't have to. His silence said more than words ever could. Lena closed her eyes tightly. She remembered the day Noah was born, the fear she carried, the choices she made, and the quiet promise she whispered into his tiny ear, that she would protect him, no matter the cost. And for 2 years, she had. She had kept him hidden, kept him far away from everything that could hurt him. But now, Ethan Marlowe had stepped into their world again. A sudden voice startled her. "You're avoiding me." Lena looked up sharply. Ethan stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, the wind brushing through his dark hair. He looked tired, almost worn out, as if whatever he carried in his mind weighed more than his tailored suit suggested. "I'm not avoiding you, sir," she said softly, tightening her hold on Noah. "Just doing my work." Ethan didn't respond right away. He studied Noah instead, the way the little boy clung to his mother again yet kept sneaking glances at him from the corner of his eye. Something flickered in Ethan's expression. Recognition? Confusion? Pain? "I've never seen a child react like that," Ethan finally said, "especially to me." He tried to laugh, but it came out low, hollow. "Kids usually cry when they see me." Lena forced a small smile, but her guard stayed up. "He's usually afraid of new people. He's sensitive." Ethan nodded, though it was clear he didn't fully believe it. Or maybe he believed something else. Something he wasn't ready to say. The wind shifted, carrying with it the faint smell of rain and the distant hum of city life. Noah tugged softly at Lena's shirt, whispering, "Mama, he nice." Lena froze. Noah rarely spoke at all, and yet here he was, trying to form words about a man he should fear. Ethan heard it, too. His eyes softened in a way that made Lena's chest tighten. "He's a good kid," Ethan said quietly. "He feels familiar." The word hit Lena like a shock. Familiar? Why familiar? She swallowed hard. "Sir, if you don't mind, we should get back to work." Ethan hesitated, then nodded, but as she stood, she saw his gaze drop to Noah again, longer this time, deeper, as if searching for answers in the child's face. As Lena walked away, Noah looked back over her shoulder. Ethan didn't move, didn't speak. He simply watched them leave with an expression Lena wished she hadn't seen. Because it wasn't curiosity. It was something much more dangerous. By afternoon, whispers had already spread through the entire mansion. Some believed Ethan had taken an interest in Noah. Others were convinced there was more to the story. Something personal. Something hidden. Lena did her best to work through the noise, but the weight of every stare felt heavier than the last. When she went to the kitchen to return a tray, one of the cooks leaned close and whispered, "Did you see how the little one went to the boss? That doesn't happen for no reason." Lena forced a smile. "Kids do unexpected things." The cook shook her head. "Not like that, dear. Not like that." Lena quickly excused herself and stepped into the hallway, her breath shaking. Noah rested his head on her shoulder, tired from the long day, unaware of the growing attention around him. She turned the corner and froze. Ethan was standing there, talking quietly to his head of security, but he stopped mid-sentence when he saw her. His expression changed, subtle but unmistakable. Lena lowered her gaze and hurried past, but she felt his eyes follow her, lingering like a question he wasn't ready to ask. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Ethan's heart had begun to race the moment he saw Noah again, because something inside him kept whispering a truth he had tried to bury years ago, a truth he had sworn he would never face. And now that truth was staring back at him, with the same dark eyes he saw every time he looked into the mirror. The rest of the week moved slowly, but nothing felt normal anymore. The mansion looked the same, the tall windows, the quiet hallways, the polished floors, but something beneath the surface had shifted. It was in the careful way Lena walked, always checking corners before stepping into a room. It was in the way the staff whispered, stealing glances at Noah as if he had become the center of a mystery none of them could solve. And it was in the way Ethan appeared everywhere, quietly watching from doorways or lingering longer than usual in rooms where he normally wouldn't stay. He didn't stare in a rude way. It was different. Studying, searching, as if trying to connect pieces only he understood. For Lena, every one of those moments made her pulse quicken. One afternoon, she carried laundry down to the servants' quarters, Noah resting half asleep against her shoulder. She hoped to avoid Ethan, but halfway down the staircase, she heard two voices, a conversation she wasn't meant to hear. She froze, staying hidden around the corner. Ethan's voice was low, controlled. "Run the background check again. I want everything. Dates, addresses, previous employment." The head of security responded, "Sir, we already checked her when she was hired. She came clean." "I know," Ethan said quietly, "but something's off. Do it again." Lena felt her blood run cold. She backed away from the wall, gripping Noah so tightly he stirred awake. She whispered into his hair, trying to calm her racing thoughts. If Ethan dug too deep, if he learned where she had been before, then everything she had spent years protecting might come crashing down. When she returned upstairs, she kept her face calm, but inside, she was shaking. She needed to be careful now. She needed to make sure Ethan didn't find what she had hidden. Not until she knew why Noah reacted him the way he did. Not until she knew whether Ethan's involvement would help them or destroy them. Later that day, while the staff prepared the dining hall for a small business gathering, Noah sat quietly beside Lena, played with the corner of her apron. He hadn't spoken much, but he kept glancing toward the doorway, waiting for someone he couldn't name. He didn't have to wait long. Ethan walked in, checking on the arrangements. The workers stiffened, but Lena focused on folding napkins, hoping to blend into the background. But Noah lifted his head instantly. His eyes brightened. His small hands reached out. A soft, hopeful sound escaped him, a sound Lena had never heard from her child before. Ethan noticed. He paused, then slowly walked toward them. "You okay there, buddy?" he asked gently. Noah leaned forward, stretching his arms toward him. Lena's hands trembled, trying to hold him still, but the effort was useless. Noah wanted Ethan, wanted him with a certainty that scared her more than anything. Ethan glanced at Lena, silently asking permission. She hesitated, then let Noah go. The moment Ethan lifted him, Noah curled into him like he belonged there, resting his small head against Ethan's shoulder with a deep sigh, one that carried trust, comfort, and something deeper. Lena looked away, unable to watch. Ethan held the child carefully, but his eyes were fixed on Lena. "Why does he trust me this way?" he asked. There was no frustration in his voice, only confusion, maybe a little fear. "I don't know," she whispered. But she did know, somewhere in her heart. She knew the truth she had run from was beginning to surface. The rest of the staff moved around them, pretending to work, but tension filled the air. There was something here, something strange, something powerful, and everyone felt it. Later that night, after the guests had left and the mansion quieted, Lena stayed a little longer to finish the last of her tasks. Most of the lights were off, leaving only the soft glow from the hallway lamps. She placed Noah in a carrier near her feet, where he slept in peaceful stillness. She was wiping down a counter when she heard footsteps, slow, steady, familiar. "Ethan," her hands stilled. She didn't turn around. "You're here late," he said softly. "So are you, sir." He stepped closer. "Lena, can we talk?" Her heart thudded painfully. She turned around, forcing calm into her voice. "About what?" He looked down at Noah, sleeping soundly. Then he lifted his gaze to her, eyes searching hers. "I can't shake the feeling that I've met him before," he whispered. "Not seen him." "Met him?" Lena swallowed. "That's not possible." "Maybe," Ethan said quietly. "But when he looked at me, it felt like he knew me." Lena held her breath. "And then he said my name," Ethan continued. "Perfectly. He can barely talk, but he said my name like he said it 100 times. She turned her face away, hiding her expression. Kids hear things. Maybe he heard someone say it. Ethan stepped closer. "This isn't about hearing a name, Lena. It's something else." Silence settled between them. the kind that reveals more than words ever could. I ordered a background check, Ethan admitted, not because I don't trust you, but because this whole thing feels connected, like there's something I'm missing. Lena's fingers tightened around the cloth she was holding. She forced herself to meet his eyes. I haven't done anything wrong. I didn't say you did, he said softly. I just want to understand. But for Lena, understanding was the last thing she wanted him to reach. She knew the past was a fragile house of glass, one small crack, and everything would fall apart. When Ethan finally stepped back, Lena felt her lungs fill with air for the first time in minutes. He hesitated, then said, "If there's something I should know, you can tell me. I won't hurt you. Or him." His voice was sincere. Too sincere. And that scared her even more. After he left, Lena held Noah close, rocking him gently. Her eyes burned with unshed tears, not from sadness, but from fear of what awaited them. She had hoped she could keep their life quiet, simple, hidden, but fate had brought Ethan back into their world, and now the truth was pushing its way out whether she wanted it to or not. The next morning, when Lena arrived for a shift, she felt the shift in the air immediately. The security team was more present. The staff seemed unusually alert. And Ethan was already downstairs, something he rarely did so early. But the biggest shock came when a woman Lena had never seen before entered the mansion, tall, sharply dressed, carrying a folder thick with papers. She walked straight at Ethan and handed it to him. He didn't open it right away. He looked around, searching for someone, searching for Lena. Their eyes met across the room. He held the folder tightly. The background check. Lena felt her entire body tense. She tightened her grip on Noah, who clung to her, sensing her fear. Ethan didn't approach her. Not yet, but she could see it in his eyes. The questions, the confusion, the silent storm about to break. Something in that folder would change everything. And the truth she feared most was no longer waiting in the shadows. It was walking toward her, step by step. Ethan didn't open the folder right away. He just held in his hand, his thumb brushing the edge as if he was afraid of what was inside. Lena stood frozen on the opposite side of the room, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. She tried to control her breathing, tried to look calm, but her legs felt weak. Noah sensed it too. He clung to her shirt and pressed his face against her chest. The woman who had delivered the folder leaned closer to Ethan and whispered something. He nodded slowly, his expression tightening in a way that made Lena's stomach twist. She knew that look. It was the look of a man who had found something he wasn't expecting, something that changed everything. She tried to move away, but Ethan turned at the same moment. Their eyes locked again. There was no anger in his face, just a quiet storm gathering strength. He took a step forward. Lena stepped back. He took another step. She felt her breath catch. "Lena," he said softly, "can we talk privately?" She shook her head before she even realized she was doing it. "I have work, sir." Ethan glanced at Noah clinging to her, his tiny hands gripping her apron with all his strength. "This is important." "I know." Her voice trembled. "That's why I can't." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Please." The word wasn't command. It wasn't even a request. It was something else. Something almost desperate. Lena swallowed hard. She looked around. The staff had stopped pretending to work. They watched with wide eyes, waiting to see what would happen. She couldn't talk here, not in front of all these people. She nodded once. 10 minutes. Back garden. Ethan exhaled in relief. She walked away before she could change her mind, before her fear turned her legs to stone. Noah held on tight, confused, murmuring, "Mama? Mama?" "It's okay," she whispered, though it wasn't. "Everything's okay, baby." But she knew it wasn't okay. Not even close. When she reached the small service garden behind the mansion, she sat on the same wooden bench where everything had begun to unravel. The air felt sharp, almost electric. Clouds rolled overhead, heavy and gray, as if even the skies sensed what was coming. Noah sat on her lap, played with her necklace, unaware his entire world was hanging by a thread. Then the door opened. Ethan stepped out, the folder still in his hand. He walked slowly, like he didn't want to frighten her, but his eyes His eyes were full of questions he had carried for years. He stopped a few feet away. "Lena," he said softly, "I need you to tell me the truth." Her throat felt tight. "About what?" He lifted the folder gently. "About him." Noah looked up at the sound of Ethan's voice. His tiny hands reached out again, but Lena held him still. "Please don't," she whispered to Ethan. "Not right now." But Ethan couldn't look away from Noah. "This report, the dates where you were, it doesn't match the story you gave when you were hired." Lena closed her eyes. Ethan continued, his voice thickening. "You worked at the clinic on Ridgeway Street 2 years ago. That clinic was connected to me." He swallowed. "I went there often. I helped fund it." Lena felt cold all over. "I spoke to the doctor," Ethan said, barely above a whisper. "She remembered you. She remembered why you left." Lena gripped Noah closer. Her hands were shaking. Ethan stepped forward, slowly. "She said you weren't alone when you came in. You were pregnant." Lena's chest tightened painfully. "She said something happened, something that made you leave town right after." Rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier, but neither of them moved. "Lena," Ethan whispered, "why does Noah know my name? Why does he look at me like that? Why does he cling to me?" She shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. "Please, don't make me say anything." "I'm not trying to hurt you," Ethan said quickly. I need to understand. I need to know why I feel like I've known him forever." Lena pressed her lips together to stop them from trembling. She didn't want this moment. She had run from it. She had built walls, left cities, changed her life completely just to avoid it. Ethan's voice broke the silence again, softer this time. "I'm not angry. I swear I'm not. I'm just scared. Because if what I think is true..." He couldn't finish the sentence. Because the truth itself was too big to say aloud. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Noah reached toward Ethan again, whining softly, as if he felt the rising tension. Ethan took one step closer. He knelt down so he was eye level with Lena, with the child. His voice trembled when he spoke. "Lena, tell me who he is." She looked away, blinking back tears. Her entire body shook. "I can't," she whispered. "You have to." "No." Her voice cracked. "Ethan, please, if I say, everything will change." "It already has," he said. "Look at him." Noah leaned out her arms again, reaching toward Ethan with desperate little hands. Ethan hesitated, then slowly lifted him. Noah buried his head into Ethan's neck like he had been waiting for this moment. Rain poured harder, soaking all three of them. Ethan held Noah close, one hand trembling against the boy's back. Then something happened, something Lena hadn't expected. Noah lifted his head, looked at Ethan with soft, sleepy eyes, and whispered a single word, a word that made Ethan freeze, a word that made Lena gasp, a word that shattered whatever was left of the walls between them. "Dad." Ethan's entire body went still. He looked at Lena, stunned, breathless, shaking. His eyes were full of questions, painful, burning questions he wasn't ready to speak. The storm struck hard, lightning slicing across the sky. Lena rose from the bench, drenched, trembling, her voice barely audible. "I told you," she whispered. "If the truth comes out, nothing will ever be the same." Ethan looked down at the child, clinging to him, then back at Lena. He opened the folder. He read something. One line, long enough for the color to drain from his face. His hands shook so violently he almost dropped the papers. The wind roared. The rain drowned everything. But nothing, silenced the moment Ethan's eyes lifted again, filled with disbelief and fear and something so deep it hurt to see. Because whatever he had read, whatever truth was buried in those pages, it was bigger than any of them had imagined, and it was only the beginning of the storm that was about to break. For a long moment, Ethan didn't speak. The rain soaked him, soaked Noah in his arms, soaked the papers trembling between his fingers. But he didn't seem to notice. He just stared at Lena with eyes full of shock, confusion, and something deeper, something he didn't know how to name yet. Lena felt her stomach twist painfully. She wanted to step forward, to take Noah back, to snatch the folder out of Ethan's hands before he read more. But her legs wouldn't move. Everything inside her felt too heavy, too raw. The truth was already out, the part she'd worked so hard to hide. But there was more in that folder. Details she never expected anyone to uncover. Things she had buried so deep she thought no one would ever dig far enough to find them. Ethan slowly lowered himself onto the wet bench. His shoulders were shaking, but he wasn't crying. He was unraveling. Noah curled into him as if sensing the shift, as if his small body understood that something huge had just cracked open. Finally, Ethan looked up. "Lena," he whispered, voice hoarse. This says you weren't the only one at the clinic that night." Lena's heart dropped. She took a step back without realizing. Ethan held up the page with trembling fingers. "It says someone else signed in before you. Someone the doctor had to hide. Someone who left in a hurry." Lena closed her eyes. He continued quietly. "It says that person used my name." Her eyes snapped open. His voice faltered. "Someone pretending to be me. Someone who looked like me. Talked like me. Used my ID. Someone the doctor trusted because she thought it was me." The wind whipped the papers. But Ethan held them tight. His eyes were wide, stunned, almost frightened. "Lena," he whispered. "Who was he?" Lightning flashed, making her flinch. "I don't know," she whispered. "I swear I don't know. I never saw his face." "But you saw something," Ethan pressed, his voice rising just enough to show the panic underneath. "Something made you run. Something made you disappear." Her breath shook. "Ethan, please don't do this." "I have to," he said, "because if Noah is my son, if he really is, then someone used my identity the night he was conceived. Someone was pretending to be me for a reason, and that reason frightens me." Noah whimpered softly, confused by the tension. Ethan instinctively soothed him, though his own hands were trembling. The rain eased for a moment, leaving behind a heavy silence. Then Lena spoke, her voice shaking so badly she could barely form the words. "Ethan, you're not listening. The doctor, she didn't just hide someone. She hid something. A truth that scared her so much she told me to leave town immediately." Ethan looked up sharply. "What truth?" Lena swallowed, her fingers gripping the edge of her soaked apron. "She told me I was in danger, that Noah was in danger. She told me never to come back." Ethan's face paled. "What kind of danger?" he whispered. Lena shook her head. "I didn't ask. I was too scared." Ethan looked down at Noah again. "If someone impersonated me, why? For what?" Before Lena could answer, the garden door suddenly opened. A security guard rushed out, breathless. "Sir," he said urgently, "we have a situation." Ethan didn't look up. "Not now." "Sir, you need to hear this," the guard insisted, glancing nervously at Lena and Noah. "Your system just flagged a breach." Ethan finally stood, clutching Noah tightly. "What breach?" The guard swallowed, choosing his words carefully. "Someone accessed your private database, using your old login. A login that hasn't been active for years. The same login that was used at the clinic the night Miss Lena was there." Lena felt her chest tighten. The guard lowered his voice. "Sir," the system traced the access point. "The signal is coming from inside this property." The air froze. Ethan's eyes widened. "Inside the mansion?" "Yes, sir," the guard whispered. "And whoever it is, they're using your identity again. Right now." Ethan stared at him, stunned. "Where?" The guard hesitated. "East Wing. The old guest rooms." Lena's knees almost buckled. Those rooms had been empty for months. No one ever went there. No one had a reason to. Ethan pulled Noah closer. "Secure the area. No one goes in or out." "Yes, sir." The guard rushed back inside. Lena took a shaky step toward Ethan. "What are you going to do?" "Find out who's in my house pretending to be me," he said, his voice tight and low. She reached out, grabbing his sleeve. "No, you don't know what you're walking into." "I can't just stand here," he said. "Someone broke into my systems. Someone connected to your past. Someone connected to Noah." His jaw tightened. "If they're here, Lena, it's not by accident. Her fear rose like a tide. Then let the security team handle it. Ethan shook his head. This is personal. He looked at her then, really looked, and she could see the fear behind his determination. A fear he was trying to hide for Noah's sake. Come with me, he said. Lena's heart raced. Ethan, no. I'm not letting you out of my sight, he said. Not now. Not until I understand what's happening. Lena hesitated. Everything inside her screamed to run, to take Noah and disappear before the past caught up to her again. But Ethan was already walking toward the mansion, Noah in his arms, determination burning in his eyes. And deep down, Lena knew the truth. Running wasn't an option anymore. The secrets she buried were finally clawing their way back to the surface. And whatever was waiting in that east wing was part of the reason she had spent years living in fear. She followed him inside, the hallway lights flickering as thunder rolled overhead. With every step, the tension grew. The air felt heavier. The mansion felt different, haunted by something unseen. Then, as they neared the east wing, a cold silence fell. No footsteps, no guards, no sound at all. Ethan slowed, tightening his hold on Noah. Lena, he whispered, stay close. She did, and then they saw it. The door to the old guest room, wide open. A faint light flickered from inside. And on the floor, just beyond the doorway, a single photograph. Ethan stepped forward slowly and picked it up with shaking hands. Lena leaned closer, and her heart stopped. It was a picture of Noah in her arms, taken months before Noah was even born. And standing behind her in the blurry background was a man who looked exactly like Ethan, only it wasn't him. Ethan froze, his hand still on the doorknob, as the weight of Tamara's words settled over the room. The baby, little Micah, had tucked his face into Ethan's chest, as if trying to hide from something none of them could see. The tension felt thick enough to touch. Everything they thought they understood had suddenly twisted into something deeper, something darker, and Ethan could feel in the way Micah clung to him. It was like the child sensed that the truth was finally close, and he was terrified of it. Tamara's eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and guilt, as if she had been carrying a secret for far too long and didn't know how to let it go. Ethan gently shifted Micah into one arm and motioned for her to sit. His heart pounded hard in his chest. He had been patient. He had respected boundaries. But now he needed answers, not for himself, but for this little boy who trusted him more than anyone else. Tamara, what did you mean? Ethan asked, his voice soft but steady. What truth were you scared to tell me? She swallowed hard. Micah lifted his head slightly, sensing the tension, then buried his face again. For a moment, Tamara didn't speak. She just looked at the two of them, the billionaire holding the baby of the cleaning lady, as if she still couldn't believe how the world had turned upside down. When I came to work here, she finally began, her voice trembling, I wasn't just trying to earn money. I was trying to disappear. Ethan's breath caught. He hadn't expected that. I was running from someone, she continued, from a man who wanted Micah, because he wasn't supposed to know Micah existed. Every muscle in Ethan's body tightened. He held Micah a little closer, without even thinking about it. Who is he? Ethan asked quietly. Tamara shook her head. I never said his name to anyone. Not even on paper. I didn't trust anyone. Not after what he did. When I was pregnant, he wanted to take Micah from me. He said the baby was his property because of who he was, because of his reputation, his money, his power. The word money stung in a way Ethan couldn't explain. He had seen people do terrible things because of money, but to claim a child like that, it made his stomach twist. I left everything behind, she whispered. My home, my job, my friends. I came to this city because it was the last place he'd look. I changed my number. I changed everything. But even after all that, I still felt like he was watching me, like he knew. Ethan could hear the raw fear in her voice. It wasn't the kind that came from imagination. It was the kind that came from surviving something real. And Micah, he said slowly, why does he cling to me? Why me? Why not anyone else? Tamara hesitated, then wiped her eyes as if bracing herself. Because she said softly. You remind him of the man I was running from. Ethan froze. The room went so silent. Ethan could hear the quiet hum of the air conditioner. Micah's little fingers gripped the collar of his shirt tightly, refusing to let go. What do you mean? Ethan managed. I didn't say you look like him, she said quickly. It's not that, but you have the same presence, the same calm way of standing, the same tone when you speak softly. And when Micah first saw you, he didn't see danger. He saw protection. He saw the version of that man he wished existed, someone who wouldn't hurt us. Ethan felt his chest tighten painfully. The thought of Micah learning fear, so young, made his eyes sting. Tamara, Ethan said gently, why didn't you tell me sooner? I could have protected you both. I have resources, connections, lawyers, security. That's exactly what I was afraid of, she whispered. I didn't want another powerful man controlling our lives. Ethan lowered his gaze, the words hitting him harder than he expected. She wasn't wrong. People like him, rich, influential, they could help or they could trap. And she had gambled everything on the chance that he wasn't like the others. Before he could respond, a soft clicking sound echoed from the hallway. It was subtle, barely more than the sound of metal brushing metal, but Ethan's instincts kicked in immediately. He looked up sharply. Tamara stiffened. Did you lock the side door? Yes, Ethan said slowly. Why? Her face went pale. Because I heard that sound last time, right before he tried to break in. Micah whimpered and pressed himself deeper into Ethan's chest. Ethan moved quietly across the room, every nerve alert. He wasn't a fighter, but he wasn't helpless either. He knew his house. He knew its layout, its shadows, its weak points. Holding Micah with one arm, he motioned for Tamara to stay behind him. Her breathing grew uneven. A second click sounded, this time closer. Ethan reached the edge of the hallway and paused. The house lights cast soft, warm glows across the floor, but something felt different. There was a shift in the air, a tension that tightened everything inside him. I need you both to stay behind me, Ethan whispered. Tamara nodded, trembling. Micah lifted his head again. His wide eyes stared at the hallway, unblinking. Then he reached one small hand out, pointing toward the dim corridor. There, he murmured. It wasn't a full word, just a sound, but it froze Ethan in place. What did he say? Ethan whispered. Tamara's hand flew to her mouth. Her voice broke. That's what he used to call him. Another sound came from the hallway, this time a soft, steady footstep. Ethan's heartbeat thundered in his ears. He backed up slowly, shielding Micah and Tamara, guiding them toward the living room. Then the footstep stopped. A low exhale drifted to the corridor. Controlled, measured. Someone was standing just out of view. Tamara grabbed Ethan's sleeve. It's him. I know it's him. Ethan's breath shook, but he didn't let fear take over. Something inside him, maybe instinct, maybe responsibility, rose up stronger than panic. Stay behind me, he whispered again. Just then, a phone vibrated on the table. Ethan glanced at it. The screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. It read, You have something that belongs to me. Ethan stared at the words, his stomach dropping. Before he could react, another message buzzed through. Step away from the child. Micah started crying softly, clinging so tightly to Ethan's shirt that his tiny fists turned white. And then, just when the fear felt unbearable, another message appeared. This one sent a cold shiver down Ethan's spine. Turn around. Ethan's breath stopped. Tamara gasped. Slowly, very slowly, Ethan turned toward the hallway. A tall shadow was now standing there, not moving, not speaking, just watching. And Ethan understood something in that instant. This wasn't just about Tamara. This wasn't just about Micah. This man had come here for a reason far bigger than any of them realized. And he wasn't leaving without what he came for. The room felt colder. Micah cried harder. Tamara whispered prayer under her breath. Ethan took one step back. The shadow took one step forward. And in that moment, when everything felt ready to snap, the man finally spoke. His voice was low. Calm. You have no idea who that child really is. Ethan froze, his heart hammering as a shadowed figure stepped closer, revealing a man in his mid-30s with a face eerily familiar, like a mirror of his own, yet different. The resemblance was uncanny, but what sent a chill down Ethan's spine wasn't the look. It was the intent behind the eyes. Cold, calculating, dangerous. "You have no idea who that child really is," the man repeated, his voice calm but filled with quiet menace that made the blood in Ethan's veins turn to ice. Tamara clutched Ethan's arm, her knuckles white. "It's him," she whispered. "It's the man I warned you about all those years ago." Ethan's mind raced. The puzzle pieces he'd been trying to fit together for weeks suddenly clicked, but in a way he hadn't expected. This wasn't just about Micah. It wasn't just about protection or identity. Someone had manipulated everything, past, present, and future, and Micah had been at the center of it from the start. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, keeping his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. "And what do you want from this child?" The man smiled faintly. "I am what you might call a reminder, a shadow of mistakes you weren't even aware were made. Micah isn't just your son. He's the key to things you've never imagined." Ethan felt Micah tighten his grip around his neck, the child sensing the threat. "Listen to me," Ethan said softly to his son. "You're safe with me. I'll protect you." Tamara nodded, tears streaking her rain-soaked face. "He's always been safe with you. That's why he reached for you. That's why he trusts you." The shadow moved slightly, but Ethan noticed his movements were deliberate, almost cautious. The man wasn't there to attack physically, not yet, but he had power, influence, and knowledge Ethan didn't. Knowledge that could undo everything they had fought to protect. "Micah doesn't belong to anyone but me," Ethan said firmly, his voice ringing with authority. "I don't care who you are. He is my responsibility. I will not let you hurt him, or Tamara." For a long moment, the man studied Ethan. Then, slowly, he nodded, almost reluctantly. "You are braver than I expected." He stepped back, his hands raised slightly, not as a gesture of surrender, but as an acknowledgement. "Perhaps you truly are the right guardian for him. But remember, the world is full of people who would exploit a child like him. You must be vigilant." Ethan's muscles loosened, tension leaving his body in a slow exhale. The danger wasn't gone, but it had shifted. The man didn't make a move toward them again. He turned and disappeared into the shadows of the east wing, leaving only an echo of his presence. Tamara collapsed onto the bench, burying her face in her hands. Ethan sat beside her, holding Micah close. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the mansion felt quiet again, though the weight of what had happened lingered like a shadow. "Is it over?" Tamara asked, voice muffled. "For now," Ethan said softly, "but we'll be ready. I promise you that." Micah stirred in Ethan's arms, looking up with wide, trusting eyes. Ethan smiled down at him, brushing damp hair from his forehead. "You're safe, little one. I won't let anyone harm you." Tamara's hand rested on Ethan's arm, a silent acknowledgement of gratitude. They both looked at the child who had brought them together in ways they hadn't expected. Micah was more than just a baby. He was a living proof of hope, trust, and the courage to survive against impossible odds. Over the next few weeks, life slowly returned to a fragile normal. Security around the mansion was tightened, and Ethan personally oversaw every detail to ensure Micah and Tamara remained safe. The staff continued their work, some whispering about the strange events, others respecting the privacy the family demanded. Ethan spent more time with Micah, learning the rhythms of fatherhood in a way he never imagined he would. Every giggle, every small step, every glance felt like a gift he'd been waiting his entire life to receive. He realized that wealth, power, and influence weren't enough. The real responsibility, the real reward, was the trust of a child. Tamara, for her part, slowly began to relax. She still carried the scars of fear, but seeing Micah safe in Ethan's arms allowed her to breathe more freely. She began to see that trust didn't have to be given blindly. It could be built, nurtured, and honored. And in Ethan, she found someone who would honor that trust unconditionally. Despite the resolution, Ethan never forgot the shadowy figure who had appeared that night. He kept Micah close, installed additional security measures, and remained vigilant. But he also knew that fear couldn't control them. They had survived, they had endured, and they had come out stronger. One evening, as the sun set and painted the mansion in soft gold, Ethan sat in the garden with Micah in his lap. The child laughed as a butterfly landed nearby, completely absorbed in the small wonders of the world. Ethan watched heartful, knowing that the past, though dark and complicated, had led to this moment of peace. Tamara joined them, carrying a cup of tea. She smiled at the sight of Ethan and Micah, and for the first time in years, she felt hope without fear. "He's happy," she said softly. "Yes," Ethan replied, brushing a small curl from Micah's forehead. "And we'll keep him that way." They sat together, the mansion quiet around them. The storm finally passed. And yet, even as they laughed, played, and shared quiet conversation, Ethan couldn't help but glance toward the east wing, where shadows still lingered in corners. He knew that life could never be completely free of threats. But he also knew this. The love and trust they had found in each other were stronger than any shadow, stronger than any danger. Micah reached out and grabbed Ethan's finger, holding it tightly. "Duh," he whispered again. Ethan's chest tightened with emotion. He bent down, pressing a gentle kiss to the child's forehead. "Yes, little one, I'm your dad, and I'll always be here." Tamara watched, tears glistening in her eyes, and smiled. "You really are his father," she said softly. "Not because of blood alone, but because of your heart." Ethan nodded. "That's what matters." For the first time, all three of them felt the weight lift from their shoulders. The danger that had haunted them, the secrets that had chased them, and the uncertainty that had threatened to pull them apart were finally behind them. And just as they began to feel at peace, Ethan's phone buzzed quietly in his pocket. He glanced down, and his eyes widened. A single message appeared on the screen. "Congratulations. But remember, not everything is as it seems." Ethan looked up at Tamara, and she met his gaze, both of them aware that their story wasn't entirely over. Micah laughed again, oblivious to the warning in the message. Ethan smiled, pressing the child closer. Some mysteries, he realized, were meant to be faced when the time was right. For now, they had each other, and that was enough. As the golden light of sunset bathed the garden, Ethan, Tamara, and Micah sat together, a family forged in fear, tested by danger and bonded by trust. They knew challenges could return, but for the first time, they also knew they could face them together. And somewhere deep in the quiet corners of the mansion, a shadow lingered, silent, watching, but powerless against the love and courage of family who refused to be broken. The baby of the black cleaning lady had finally found his place. And in doing so, he had given them all something far greater than survival. He had given them hope, trust, and a future worth protecting.